Would you buy a used car from this man? How many raise your hand? Would you buy a used car from this man? Okay. Never, never. Okay, just a minute. I got somebody else you might be interested in. How about this guy? I got an FBI hat, but I think everybody knows I'm FBI, and I don't want you to say you're going to buy a used car from me, okay? Okay. Had a very illustrious career, FBI. Now if I can find my glasses that I took off, we can continue. At the time of my retirement, I was in charge of the FBI Los Angeles Division. We were responsible for most of Southern California, over 14 million people in my jurisdiction, had 16 offices, 700 plus personnel, $22.5 million budget. So, and in 1977, I was honored as the Outstanding Law Enforcement Officer of America by the AFL-CIO Metal Trades Council. This presents a problem for the boys. I call them the junior high boys, the shadow government, because I do have credibility. I'm not some guy pushing a grocery basket looking for a recycling center, okay? But during my career, I had a number, well, it was unbelievable. I mean, I'd get up in the morning and be shaving and say, I can't believe they're paying me to go to work. That's the kind of a job it was. And it had a couple of interesting cases which I might pass on to you. One was July 12, 1972, Philadelphia International Airport. I negotiated with two terrorists who had taken over Flight 496, National Airlines flight from Miami to Philadelphia. They had 113 passengers and 4, 5, 6, 7 crew members on there. And they had the plane at the end of the runway. And they threatened to blow up the plane, shoot some passengers and all that sort of thing. So I was in charge at that time of the Philadelphia office, and I had the opportunity to negotiate with them. I took the opportunity. Somebody had to negotiate with them. I just negotiated with them for 2.5 hours, finally with the successful release of the 113 passengers. Let them have a second plane. The first one was out of gas, and they flew on down to Texas and so on and so forth. That was one of the exciting cases I handled. Another case where in the Memphis, Tennessee parking lot at the airport, we had a little gun battle. They had 3 hostages we couldn't shoot back. And anyway, we successfully took them in and controlled them. 2 of them were tried and sentenced. The other fellow committed suicide rather than give up. I had another bank robbery in Philadelphia where the fellow was cornered. He waited too long to get out of the bank, and went up the second floor and blew himself apart. Then I had another case where this fellow went into the bank, and he held up the bank. He was in line. And after he held up the bank, he turned around to the fellow behind him. He says, "Did you see me rob the bank?" And the guy says, "Yeah." Blows him away. And there's a guy behind him. He said, "Did you see me rob the bank?" "No, I didn't see it, but my wife did." And I had another case, which you'll find interesting. This big 6'5", 255-pound fellow walks into the supermarket, walks over to the produce department, and there's a kid over there polishing apples. He said, "Kid, I want a half head of lettuce." And the kid, without even looking up, he says, "We don't sell a half head of lettuce." He taps him on the shoulder. He says, "Kid, I want a half head of lettuce." The big little guy turns around and looks at him. "Just a minute, sir, I'll be right back. I got to go back and talk to the manager." He runs back to the back of the store. He says, "Sir, there's some dumbass out here who wants a half head of lettuce." Didn't realize this big guy had followed him back there. And he turns around and sees him. He says, "And this gentleman wants the other half." So the manager, the fellow, they sell him a half head of lettuce. And the manager walks up to the kid later in the day. He says, "You got a great future here, kid. I like the way you handle yourself. You think on your feet. The future's yours. I mean, I'm going to promote you right away." He says, "Where are you from? I want to know more about you." He says, "I'm from Massillon, Ohio. Nothing but football players and prostitutes come from Massillon." And the manager says, "My wife's from Massillon." The kid says, "Oh, what position does she play?" Let's get down to serious business. Brian Gumbel, on remember his old TV show, morning TV show? We were talking about Oklahoma City, the bombing. And I made 2 trips to Oklahoma City. I'm going to go more into detail in just a minute. She just caught the joke just now. Are you from Massillon, Ohio? Yeah, she is from Massillon, Ohio. She's shaking her head. Anyway, go ahead. Are you through? Okay. So anyway, I made 2 trips to Oklahoma. I was so incensed. I was furious when that happened because I received a call from Michael. Michael and I buddy. He's one of my closest friends. He and John DeCamp and a few other people. Pat Shannon's one of my closest friends. And Michael was in prison at the time, and I'll tell you more about that in a few minutes. He said, Ted, that's my bomb. Not that he made that bomb, but Michael and his dad, Marshall, who was also CIA, had the Hercules Manufacturing Company in Silicon Valley, California. And Michael is the brains behind this bomb. He's brilliant, as I said a few moments ago when Pat was talking. And he says, Ted, that's my bomb. He says, it was developed by Hercules, my dad's company and his company, and manufactured by Dyna Nobel out of Salt Lake City. So I said, now Michael's in prison, but I communicate with him. He can call me. My telephone number's on his list for telephone calls. And so I was so incensed over that because I knew that Michael worked for the agency, and I knew instinctively that had to be a government operation. I made 2 trips to Oklahoma myself, personally out of my pocket, and I investigated it. And I'm going to go more into detail later on in my lecture. And I prepared a 210-page report on Oklahoma City. And I've passed it out to everybody and his brother who will look at it. I'm talking about in the official capacity, FBI and the rest of them. Everybody's ignored me. So anyway, the Oklahoma City was obviously an inside job. But the reason I mentioned Oklahoma City at first is because I gave a copy of my report to Jim Nichols, Terry Nichols' brother. Terry and McVeigh are co-conspirators and defendants in the Oklahoma City bombing. And Jim was interviewed by Brian Gumbel on his TV show this particular morning. And Jim says, have you read Ted Gunderson's Oklahoma City report? Which is very damaging to the government, by the way. And it is, I say it is available to you. And Gumbel says, no, he's a conspiracy theorist. But I want to tell you right now, I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I'm a conspiracy realist. There is a conspiracy. And by the time we finish my lecture, in an hour and 15, 20 minutes, I guarantee, if there's any doubt in your mind, it will not be there afterwards. Going back real quick, I'm going to review a couple of things. Pearl Harbor, I personally talked to the naval officer who received the message December the 4th, 1941, that they were going to bomb Pearl Harbor. We'd broken the Japanese code. He passed the information on to his superiors. After World War II, he received a subpoena from Congress. They wanted him to testify. His senior officer in the Navy said, don't worry about it, don't even answer it. Nothing's going to come of it. JFK, Jack F. Kennedy. Pat's talked about that, and I think Jim talked about it too. I have a video, a DVD, and I highly recommend you folks buy this video. By the way, my videos are so cheap. At one time, I was giving them away for $3.85 each. But it got to the place where I had to charge a little more. But I'm giving them away. If you look at my catalog, and I'll go into that in just a few minutes. But I have this video on Jack Kennedy. And there were 13 shots in Dealey Plaza that day. The parade route at the last minute was changed by a fellow named I.B. Hale. I.B. Hale was an FBI agent. He was a personal friend of J. Edgar Hoover's. And one of his relatives wrote to me and told me about this and pointed out that he'd passed away very suspiciously. And when she examined his medicine, there was a bottle of medicine in his bathroom of pills, of some sort of medicine, and there were two different sizes. She suspected that he was poisoned or caused a heart attack at least. So the boys, the junior high boys, get rid of everybody that's going to hurt them. Direct testimony. Okay? So I urge you folks to get that one. And I have another one, JFK Jr., no question about it. By the way, on Jack Sr., this video puts George Bush in Dealey Plaza at the time of the murders, okay? And the JFK Jr. puts George Bush, the president we have today, unavailable for 3 days during that period. His own staff didn't know where he was. And JFK Jr. was murdered without any question. And if you get that video, you'll find it. You'll see it. It's in there. It's documented. And then we had Bobby. Bobby was murdered, obviously. There were 11 shots in the walls and the door. Saran's gun would only hold 8 bullets. Okay? Daryl Gates wrote a book about it. Well, he wrote a book, and he put the whole book wasn't about that, but that was in the book. And he was trying to explain away this bullet theory about all these extra bullets on the wall and so forth. And it's just like the magic bullet theory with Conley. Didn't make any sense. Daryl Gates was a cover-up specialist. I developed information after I retired. The things I've been, by the way, my life since I retired has been 120% more exciting than at the time I was in the FBI. Okay? More dangerous, too. You bet. Brian, I'll go into that in just a few minutes. If it wasn't through divine intervention, I would not be here giving this lecture today. The good Lord has taken care of me real good. Okay? Amen. But anyway, I forget where it was. I got off the track there. What was I talking about? The bullet. In Bobby. Oh, I was talking about Daryl Gates. Okay, I developed information about drugs being brought into Central California by boat, taken over to Tulare, California by truck, and then brought down to Los Angeles. I gave Daryl Gates, I knew Daryl Gates because I was in charge of the FBI, he was in charge of the LAPD. And I gave that information to Daryl Gates with a letter, told him, send somebody over to see me, I'll give you the information. Nobody ever bothered to come see me. And this has been the experience that I've had in dealing with various law enforcement agencies. I develop information, clear-cut violations, and I'm ignored. I take it into, I have developed information about a CIA child kidnapping ring. There are 91 Americans who disappear every hour. It is estimated between 85 and 90% are children. Now that's over 700,000 Americans disappear every year, but a lot of them are returned, of course. But I have documentation of a CIA child kidnapping ring. They go around in vans, they take runaway kids, they put them in a van, they take them off, and they use them for body parts or for sacrifice or for sex slaves, or and some of them are adopted out around the world, I have an informant, and I asked him, I said, what happens to these kids? He said he's attended 6 auctions where the children anywhere from 2 to 3 up to 21 years of age are placed on a stage with a number on a piece of paper tied around their neck, cord, and the people in the audience bid on that number. The kids sell for up to $50,000 each, okay? And I said, how many kids were at these auctions? He said the fewest number at one was 6, and the most at another auction was 36. 36 times $50,000, that's a lot of money. I've developed other information. The auctions have taken place, to my knowledge, right now, Toronto, Canada, outside Las Vegas, Nevada, Houston, Texas, a barn outside Lincoln, Nebraska, and a place in Michigan. I have people writing to me continuously, help me, or furnishing me information.